Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name's Allie Leathery from Tricerat, and we're going to be talking about printing and education. I have here Andrew Parlett, the CTO of Tricerat. He's been with the company for over 20 years, so he has some really great insight on the topic. Andrew?
Hi, I'm Andrew Parlett, the CTO at Tricerat. And Tricerat's been around for over 20 years, really solving problems within the Windows desktop space, specifically around printing. And so whether we're talking Windows desktops and laptops, VDI, terminal server, any of these types of environments, we have solutions that layer in place and really help administrators both gain efficiency in how they're managing their printing environment, but also delivering a better solution out to their users through these systems. And so today we're going to talk about printing within education. A lot of the things that we see in education are similar to other verticals. However, there are some unique things about the education market, and so we really want to dive into that and really see ways that these solutions can address those problems that we've seen in some of our customer environments that are in the education market.
Thank you, Andrew. So it's no surprise that there is a shift to more of a digital atmosphere when it comes to printing and education. And that shift is regarded as not only inevitable, but also desirable. There's a lot of reasons why administrators are choosing to make those shifts, why school districts are choosing to make those shifts. Andrew, can you talk a little bit about some of your insights on that?
Yeah, there is that move to digital. I mean, I think we are aware of that, but it's really a lot more complicated that when you get into it, because that's a transition that happens over time from the realm of printing to digital. And there's a lot of things, even though there's less printing as you move to digital, there's still a lot of environments that still need printing and still need that in a very critical way. And so as we look at this time that we're in as far as the transition, it's important to keep in mind that even though we kind of have that ideal of the all digital, the reality is quite a bit different.
Thank you so much. So we have some statistics here kind of about what shift we're seeing as far as moving to hybrid, moving to more of a digital atmosphere, and how administrators feel about that shift. How many think, they're going to stay on mainly print materials, how many are currently in the hybrid transition, and how many are really moving to all digital resources. So can you talk a little bit about that shift?
Yeah, this particular survey was done really looking from today through the next 3 years, so kind of the foreseeable future and ways that we can forecast that. So the question asked was, to what degree do you expect print materials to be replaced by digital resources over the next 3 years? And there is a chunk of that, which is about 16%, where the print materials are still the primary device used in education as far as the materials that they're using on a day-to-day basis. And then you see a range from somewhat substantial to 50-50 to very substantial. There is a percentage that thinks that within the next 3 years, all resources will be digital. But based on this particular study that was done, that's under 3%. So it's a very small percent that really can go all digital, where the rest of the industry still has reliance on printing, and in some cases, a very large percentage of it.
So 34% of educators predict they will always use at least a 50-50 blend of digital and print resources in schools. Can you talk about some of the reasons for that transition, why districts might choose to use half and half? What are the benefits to that?
Right, so as there's more technology initiatives such as BYOD, there's ways that we can now have more of the process done digitally. And certainly as we talk about delivering of resources, perhaps out to students or information to parents, or even within the school system, there's a real advantage to having those things digital. But a lot of times, somewhere in the process, there needs to be a print to, maybe it's to a student that's in the classroom, or it might be outside the classroom doing homework. There's a lot of different times that might go into print. And there's really just this reality of the transition. We see across all business types that transitions take time. Sometimes the ideals are that we can do this very quickly, but it takes time to move from one system to another. And there's some reasons behind that. Some of that is technology, but there's also financial. And the technology side of things, there's more and more obviously now with mobile and devices that can be used. But still, getting those distributed, getting those purchased, getting those used in the classroom, also in a way that educators and students and parents and everyone can leverage them in a smart and efficient way. These are things that take time, and so that's where we see ourselves in this transition time of having more emphasis on digital, but still that need for print and older techniques as well.
Great. So I feel like we kind of touched on this during your last point, but can you kind of talk about why, we see a lot of school districts, it's only 2.6% that really think that they will be entirely digital. Everyone needs to print: educators, students, parents, admin staff. Can you kind of talk about a little bit why, we don't see this shift happening so quickly? It's going to be gradual, but I think, a lot of us feel like we'll always need to physically print. Can you kind of talk about why there might be some benefits to that and why so many school districts, are still going to be reliant on that for a long time in the future?
Yeah, we have talked about some of those examples, and there's different cases, even across like K through 12 or higher ed or other forms of education institutions. Across even those spectrums, there's a lot of differences in terms of how it's implemented. But this kind of covers the different use cases, from educators to students to parents to even admin staffs, where there's just like day-to-day business of running education institutions. And there's some examples up here, such as worksheets or exams. And then when we say don't forget about BYOD, having students bring BYOD in, or other people in education, there's a lot of opportunity there, but then there's also a lot of complexity that comes along with it. And so then when someone has their own device and still needs to print, there's an extra layer of configuration and management that has to happen to really make that a smooth possibility. So sometimes, even in the digital realm of that BYOD space, there's still the need to have your full set of resources in your infrastructure ready to go for those BYOD devices.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So now let's talk about something that I think is really important, especially in the education industry: costs. So a couple of studies were done, and for most schools, about 10% of a school's annual budget is spent on printing. And I think this is really significant, because I think a lot of schools budget for even less than that, and they end up spending about 10% of their budget on printing. Can you kind of talk about the breakdown of some of those costs? Where are they incurring these costs, and what kind of problems are associated that really, kind of drive this spend on printing?
Yeah, and 10% of a budget can certainly be a lot. So there's a big opportunity for savings in this space. And so let's look at that breakdown, because 10% is a broad thing. If we break that down a little bit, we see that about 5% is from those hardware costs. That's, buying the printer, getting it installed, getting it set up, maybe print servers, and some of those other management pieces as far as the infrastructure. And then you get into operating costs. Again, this is something that's thought of frequently: the consumables as far as paper and ink, the power, the networking, these type of things to enable printing. Again, these are often things that are seen and thought of up front. What's often a hidden cost, and in this study sees about 50% of it, is those indirect costs from your support infrastructure, your help desk, productivity loss from both admins and for your users. And so there's a lot that goes into just management, from both setup, but then also day-to-day configuration management and changes that need to happen just to enable printing for users when it's not always a static thing that needs to happen. So again, within that indirect cost, if we can layer a management solution that helps minimize those costs, again, a huge opportunity to really back off some of the spend and save some cost through management infrastructure. Let's also think about the problems, and some of these are from education. Like we talked about, paperless isn't entirely possible. In environments, printing still ends up, even if it's less volume, there's still a critical nature to having printing work, and not having printing be a major drain on productivity. When the print has to happen, if it requires help desk calls and time instead of just hitting print and having it come out of the right printer, there's really a lot of issue that comes up there if printing isn't handled the right way in the environment. Secondly, we see how budgets are fixed on a yearly cycle. However, printing costs are not. A lot of times we don't really know what those printing costs are until we get into the year, until we understand the students and their needs and how their printing is happening. There's just no way to fully grasp what that spend is up front. And so there's a lot of variability through the year, even though it's a static budget at the beginning. And so it's a real challenge to manage that through the year as spending starts creeping up. Again, having a management system in place to control that and to monitor that helps identify that problem and keep it at bay. And then third, technology is discretionary. Again, when we're looking at spend and that printing spend starts going up, a lot of times the money that was previously allocated can get spent elsewhere. And so to solve this problem, it's really important to think very strategically about what you're spending those technology dollars on up front to make sure that it has a good return on investment and that you can take advantage of it through the year and year to year beyond that.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So let's talk solutions now. Again, we talked budget. We know where a lot of those costs are coming from, but how do we really reduce them? And I think it's kind of a multifaceted thing. You first need to identify where those costs are coming from, what your cost savings are going to be, what's the ROI for a solution, something like Tricerat's, and also what changes can be made to an education environment that are really going to, not only save costs, but also make the lives of administrators and the users simplified, more streamlined, and easier.
Let me start with the way the solution works. We have a management console that manages the system, and this can be pretty much any Windows endpoint from a desktop, a terminal server, a virtual desktop. So throughout the environment, even the mobile devices that are coming in, we can now identify print resources on the network through print servers, IP printers, or even client printers, and then be able to assign those printers to users in the Active Directory, groups, the devices that they're using, or where they are in terms of the network subnet that they're on. And so an easy assignment method from the administrator to configure these printers, and then for the user, printing automatically happens as far as the printers are built that they need based on where they are, the device that they have, and their credentials in the directory. And then we also provide a self-service application so that if they do need a different printer, they can pull up an application, add a printer that you've granted them resources to, and have it available immediately in their session without having to browse the network or calling the help desk. So those are just a couple ways where we can save administrator time in terms of the management cost, but also enhance the end user productivity while they're using a range of services from your IT team. Now there's a couple of things I want to highlight as far as identifying those costs and areas for savings. First, on our website, which is tricerat.com/ROI Calc, we have an ROI calculator using some of the statistics that we talked about earlier in the presentation. And so you put in a few assumptions like total admin hours spent on printing and also total hours on your help desk. And we can use some industry averages to get a relative cost of how much you're spending on printing. And then, again, based on industry averages, having a management system like Simplified Printing, the possibility of savings in that environment. So again, a great way to start kind of pulling back the covers of what you're spending on printing and identify areas for savings. Once you have it installed, we do have auditing and reporting in the product. And so what's seen over here on the right is a list of print jobs that have gone through the system. So you have access to see who's printing, what they're printing, the number of pages, black and white or color, these different metrics to help you get a handle on how much printing is happening in your system. And again, identify areas of where the spend is and then areas that can potentially be reduction of those costs. And it just helps you get a better handle on the printing in the environment. Now, there are some changes that can go into place within an education infrastructure. One is just managing how printing is done, and there's some savings there. Some common ones are by default setting duplex printing on or setting printing to black and white. Again, just saving on those consumable costs. And we can set those values on print servers or within our management system to make sure that those are the defaults that are pushed out to the user for every time that they print. Then we also look at access. Again, this is talking about the management, about the stability and consistency for your users, reducing help desk calls. When we think about BYOD and mobile, having a consistent platform for printing for both management and the users across all these environments is very helpful. Making sure that we can integrate with other systems and also provide access to the full range of features for your printers. In many cases, these printers are very costly and have a lot that they can do. We want to make sure that the management system allows full access to those features so that you can take advantage of what you've purchased. And then as we get into the management system, we look at things like streamlining that back-end process, making that simple, making it consistent, making it repeatable. These are ways that you can really help reduce the amount of time you're spending. And then ultimately, if we can reduce the calls into the help desk, we're really being successful and really being more budget-minded as far as where the spend is and reducing that cost of printing. And the print management software like Simplified Printing is a way to really enable that in your environment and help get control of those type of techniques.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So just to reiterate, there's multiple reasons why print management software can really be effective, especially in education environments. Tricerat gives you the tools to help identify costs and areas for improvement within your print environment. And really, print management software helps with small changes and with large changes, especially when it comes to education. You're going to want access, your users need access to advanced print features, black and white printing, duplexing, but it also helps with large scale changes, less help desk calls, more streamlined experience for users and for system administrators. And that about wraps us up for today. Andrew, I wanted to give you a minute to close us out here.
Yeah, thank you. We looked at a wide range of things here, things that we've seen out in the field, especially around the education market, things that are similar to other industries and uniquenesses to education. And so we looked at ways that you can help identify the cost of printing, sometimes ways that you may not realize right now, and advantages of print management software. And Simplified Printing can layer into that environment, help you get control over printing, help you deliver a better service out to your users in a way that's much more efficient. So I want to invite you to see a couple resources that we have. First, on our website, tricerat.com/getstarted. And if you go here, there's a wide range of information, documentation, the features that we have. There's online demos that you can see the software in action. We can also field any questions that you might have from this presentation at sales@tricerat.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Or we can certainly set up a one-on-one consultation with you so we can understand some of the issues and challenges you're facing in your environment in ways that we can tailor the solution directly towards you. So we'd love to get to work with you on that and then set up a POC so you can realize quickly what the advantages could be in your environment. So on behalf of Allie and myself, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you have a great day.